holding eye contact. This simple act is one of the most powerful skills for thriving in everyday life. Looking directly into someone's eyes during a conversation, even for just a few seconds, communicates focus and presence in a way words can't fully capture. Most people do it naturally for brief moments. How long it feels comfortable depends on the situation, the culture, and the relationship between the people involved. At its core, eye contact is about attention. With a friend, it can make an exchange feel more authentic. In a job interview, it signals confidence and engagement. Even with a stranger, like thanking a cashier, a brief glance can create a small but genuine connection. Eye contact also shapes how messages are received. A steady gaze while speaking often conveys honesty and certainty. Looking away too quickly can suggest nervousness, lack of interest, or simply that someone is pausing to think. The meaning always depends on context. When you're actively listening, holding someone's gaze feels natural. In reflective moments, breaking eye contact may be expected. Cultural differences add another layer. In some places, direct eye contact is seen as respectful. In others, it may come across as confrontational or inappropriate. Being aware of your surroundings helps you know when and how to use it. Strengthening this skill doesn't require much. Just practice holding eye contact a few seconds longer in daily conversations until it feels natural. What seems like a small gesture is actually a powerful tool for communication, trust, and presence in any interaction. Reading the room. Imagine walking into a meeting and sensing tension before anyone says a word. That's reading the room. It's the ability to quickly grasp the mood, energy, and unspoken dynamics of a group. This comes from paying attention to cues in body language, tone of voice, and behavior, then adjusting how you interact accordingly. At its core, reading the room is about careful observation. You might notice people leaning back with crossed arms, speaking less, or avoiding eye contact, signals of discomfort or disengagement. On the other hand, frequent nodding, leaning forward, and quick responses can show interest and agreement. These signs guide you on whether to continue as planned, slow down, or shift your approach. This skill matters in countless situations. During a presentation, it helps you know when to expand on a point or move forward. At a social gathering, it tells you whether a joke has landed or if it's time to change the subject. Even in small moments, like joining an ongoing conversation, it helps you ease in smoothly. Reading the room also means being aware of your own impact. If you notice the atmosphere change after you speak, it's a signal to adjust your tone or approach. Developing this awareness prevents misunderstandings and makes communication flow more naturally. It takes practice to notice these subtle patterns. It often begins with pausing and observing before jumping in. Over time, you'll build a sharper sense of group dynamics and respond in ways that fit the moment, making interactions smoother and more effective for everyone involved. Know thyself. Understanding what motivates you, frustrates you, and shapes your decisions is the essence of knowing yourself. It's about having a clear, honest picture of your strengths, weaknesses, values, and behavioral patterns. When you understand yourself, you can make choices that align with who you are, rather than reacting unconsciously. At its core, self-knowledge begins with observation. This could mean recognizing that you're most productive in the morning and reserving those hours for important work, or noticing which situations trigger stress and preparing strategies to handle them. It also involves knowing what you value most: growth, stability, creativity, and letting those priorities guide your choices. Self-knowledge isn't about avoiding difficulty, but about being honest with limitations while still taking on challenges. For instance, if you know you procrastinate on big projects, you might divide them into smaller steps to keep momentum. If you recognize that feedback makes you defensive, you can practice pausing to listen before responding. These small adjustments help you work more smoothly with others while managing your own expectations. Practical ways to strengthen this skill include reflecting on past experiences, seeking candid feedback, and noticing your reactions in different settings. Journaling, tracking habits, or discussing your patterns with someone you trust can bring valuable clarity. In both personal and professional life, people who understand themselves can set realistic goals, communicate needs clearly, and choose environments where they're most likely to succeed. It's not about having every answer. It's about having a reliable understanding of how you think, feel, and act. That foundation makes it easier to make decisions, build relationships, and handle challenges in ways that align with your nature and priorities. The art of saying no. Everyone faces times when they're asked to take on something they don't truly have the time, energy, or interest for. It might be an extra assignment at work, a favor for a friend, or an invitation you'd rather decline. Learning to say no clearly and respectfully is an essential part of protecting your priorities. At its core, saying no is about setting boundaries. Without it, it's easy to become stretched thin, stressed, and less effective in the things that matter most. The key is to decline in a way that's both direct and considerate. Instead of vague excuses, you might say, "I can't take this on right now." A short explanation can help the other person understand without leaving space for back and forth negotiation. Many people struggle with saying no because they fear disappointing others or being seen as unhelpful. But always agreeing leads to burnout and frustration. By noticing when a yes would mean sacrificing personal time, delaying your own goals, or creating unhealthy stress, you can choose moments where standing firm is worth it. Practicing in low-stakes situations helps build confidence. Declining a store offer, refusing a subscription, or saying no to an extra task you simply can't manage are ways to strengthen the skill. Done well, saying no doesn't damage relationships. It protects them. It keeps your commitments aligned with your values and capacity, preserving balance in both personal and professional life. Spotting lies. When someone's story shifts depending on when or how they tell it, that inconsistency may signal that the details aren't reliable. Spotting lies means identifying when information may not be truthful by noticing patterns, contradictions, and whether the claims can be supported. It's less about one single sign and more about putting together multiple clues to form a clear judgment. At the simplest level, it's checking if words line up with verifiable facts. If a coworker insists a project is finished but avoids showing proof, that gap might be worth questioning. In personal life, hearing multiple versions of the same event from the same person can hint at missing or altered details. Nonverbal behavior can add to the picture. Someone might avoid direct answers, pause unusually, or include excessive unrelated details. These don't automatically prove dishonesty, but they're signals worth paying attention to. Asking direct, specific questions often helps. Truthful accounts tend to stay consistent even when retold, while fabricated ones often lose detail or shift under repetition. Comparing what someone says to reliable records, timelines, or firsthand observations is another way to test accuracy. It's also important to remember that stress, fatigue, or simple nervousness can look a lot like the signals people often mistake for dishonesty. That's why spotting lies is most effective when several observations line up instead of depending on one isolated behavior. At the core, spotting lies is about combining careful observation, follow-up questions, and fact-checking to judge whether the information you're being given is truly reliable. First principles thinking. At its simplest, this is the practice of breaking a problem down into its most basic elements before building a solution. The idea is to strip away assumptions, habits, and comparisons, and focus only on what's undeniably true. From there, you rebuild your approach using logic and evidence, rather than relying on the way it's always been done. For example, if you want to start exercising but believe a gym membership is the only way, you can break it down. The real goal is movement, not necessarily a gym. From that truth, you might realize bodyweight exercises at home or regular walks outdoors could serve the same purpose. The same approach works professionally. If a process in your team feels inefficient, instead of copying what a competitor does, you ask, what's actually required? What tasks need to be completed? What resources do we have? What outcome do we want? From there, you design the system from scratch, cutting out what doesn't add value. This method can shape personal decisions too. If you're considering a major purchase, rather than comparing similar products by default, you first define the essential purpose it must serve. That often reveals more cost-effective or creative options you might have overlooked. The challenge is that this way of thinking takes more effort up front than relying on standard models or common advice, but it usually produces sharper, more tailored results because it's grounded in fundamentals, not assumptions. First principles thinking is a practical way to problem solve and make decisions by reducing them to the basics and building upward with logic and evidence. Articulation. At its heart, this skill is about expressing yourself in a way that's clear and easy for others to follow. It means structuring your thoughts, choosing words carefully, and delivering them in a way that makes your message land as intended. It begins with clarity of thought, knowing what you want to say before you start. This helps you avoid vague or confusing language. For instance, if you need to explain a change in plans to a group, start with the key point, what has changed, then explain why, and finally outline what needs to happen next. Structure matters too. Presenting information in a logical sequence helps listeners stay with you without guessing what comes next. In a meeting, that might look like giving an overview, walking through the main points one by one, and ending with a clear summary of action items. Tone and pace play a role as well. Speaking too quickly can blur the details, while speaking too slowly risks losing attention. In casual conversation, slowing slightly when introducing new information gives others a chance to process it. Adapting your language to the audience is equally important. Explaining a technical process to a colleague in the same field might include industry terms, but when talking to someone outside of it, you'd lean on simpler language and relatable examples. Articulation improves with consistent practice. Preparing your thoughts beforehand, paying attention to how people respond, and adjusting over time all sharpen the skill. It's a practical tool for making sure your ideas are understood the way you intend, whether in casual conversations, professional presentations, or even written messages. Reading between the lines. Understanding the meaning behind someone's words often requires more than just hearing what they say. Reading between the lines is the skill of picking up on the underlying message, intention, or emotion that may not be spoken directly. It means paying attention to tone, context, body language, and also to what's left unsaid. At its core, this skill is about looking beyond the literal words. For instance, if a coworker says, "That's an interesting idea," but their tone is hesitant and they don't ask any follow-up questions, they may be expressing doubt rather than agreement. In personal settings, a friend might say they're fine while avoiding eye contact, quietly signaling that something is wrong without putting it into words. Context matters. The same phrase can carry very different meanings depending on the situation, the relationship, and past experiences. A short response in a busy meeting might simply reflect time pressure, while that same brevity in a relaxed setting could suggest boredom or disinterest. Recognizing these differences helps you interpret the real message more accurately. Nonverbal signals often fill in the gaps. A smile that doesn't reach the eyes, crossed arms, a pause before responding, these can all hint at what isn't being said. For example, a customer who says a product is good, but avoids eye contact and quickly changes the subject may actually be dissatisfied. Matching body language and tone with the spoken words gives you the full picture. Reading between the lines helps prevent misunderstandings, uncovers hidden concerns, and lets you respond to the real issue. It's most effective when paired with clarifying questions instead of relying solely on assumption. Ultimately, it's a practical way to understand what isn't said outright, making communication stronger and decision-making clearer in both personal and professional life. Sense of humor. Finding lightness even in everyday situations is at the core of having a sense of humor. This skill is about recognizing and appreciating moments of amusement, and sometimes sharing them in a way that brings others along. Humor can ease tension, strengthen relationships, and make ordinary interactions more enjoyable. At its heart, a sense of humor means noticing the playful or unexpected side of things. At work, laughing with colleagues about a harmless mistake can make it easier to move forward. Within a family, joking about a shared mishap, like getting lost on a road trip, can turn frustration into a memory that everyone laughs about later. Timing and awareness are key. A well-placed, lighthearted remark can lift the mood, while humor used in the wrong way or at someone else's expense can create the opposite effect. Developing this skill involves reading the room and understanding what people are comfortable with. Humor isn't limited to telling jokes. It can mean approaching challenges with a lighter perspective enjoying playful banter, or simply appreciating clever observations. Even quietly noticing something funny in your surroundings can shift your mindset into a more positive space. A sense of humor makes it easier to connect with others, helps people feel more at ease, and acts as a quick reset when stress builds up. It's a practical way to bring positivity into daily life, smoothing out interactions and making challenges a little easier to handle. Storytelling. Communicating in a way that sticks with people often comes down to telling it as a story. Storytelling is the skill of shaping events, facts, or ideas into a narrative that is engaging, clear, and easy to follow. It's a tool that works in conversations, presentations, job interviews, and casual social settings. At its simplest, a story has three parts: a beginning, a middle, and an end. The beginning sets the stage: who's involved, where it happens, and why it matters. The middle shows the unfolding events or challenges, often building interest or tension. The ending delivers resolution, whether it's a lesson learned, a decision made, or just the conclusion of the events. In everyday life, storytelling transforms ordinary experiences into moments people remember. Explaining how a project succeeded is more compelling when you describe the problem, the steps taken, and the outcome instead of just listing results. Talking about a trip is more engaging if you include the small setbacks or surprises that happened along the way. Storytelling gives structure and meaning to the details of life, making information easier to connect with and far more memorable. It's a practical skill for turning facts into experiences that people understand, remember, and relate to. Good storytelling always takes the listener into account. It means choosing details that matter to them, keeping the length appropriate, and using language they can connect with so the story flows naturally. It's not about exaggeration or unnecessary drama. It's about selecting and arranging the right pieces so the message is clear and the attention stays focused. This skill grows with practice, learning to explain things concisely, observing how others tell stories, and paying attention to rhythm and pacing. A strong story doesn't drift off course. Every part contributes to the listener's understanding. Mastering storytelling gives you the ability to share ideas in a way that is both clear and memorable, whether you're speaking to one person or an entire audience. The art of persuasion. Convincing someone to see your perspective or take action is the foundation of persuasion. This skill is about guiding decisions by presenting information in a way that is logical, relatable, and aligned with the other person's needs or interests. It combines clarity of communication with an awareness of what truly matters to your audience. At its heart, persuasion begins with preparation. Knowing the facts, anticipating questions, and addressing possible objections makes your message stronger. If you want your team to adopt a new tool, for example, you might gather data showing how it saves time, share examples from other organizations, and connect the benefits directly to existing problems. Trust is another critical element. People are more likely to be persuaded by someone they find credible and who they believe has their best interests at heart. Building that trust means being consistent, transparent, and open to feedback instead of pushing a one-sided argument. Framing your message in terms of what the other person values makes it more compelling. At home, persuading a family member about a budget might mean showing how it creates space for shared goals. In the workplace, it could mean emphasizing how a proposed change directly benefits the team. Timing and delivery matter too. Presenting an idea when the other person is open to it and keeping the explanation clear without unnecessary complexity greatly improves the chances of agreement. The art of persuasion is ultimately a practical skill, guiding others toward a choice by blending sound reasoning, credibility, and an understanding of what genuinely appeals to them. Negotiation. At its core, negotiation is about reaching an agreement that works for everyone. It's the skill of finding common ground between different needs, priorities, or perspectives so that all parties can move forward with a solution they can accept. Negotiation requires preparation, clear communication, and a willingness to compromise without losing sight of your key objectives. At its core, negotiation begins with knowing what you want and why it matters. If you're discussing salary with a potential employer, for example, you might set a target figure based on research and the value you bring. Beyond pay, identifying priorities like flexible hours or professional growth helps you evaluate offers more completely. Listening to the other side is just as essential. In a family setting, negotiating chores might involve recognizing which tasks each person dislikes and dividing them in a way that feels fair. In business, it could mean learning what the other party values most, then offering something that meets their needs while still achieving your own goals. Clear communication plays a major role. Explaining your reasoning, backing it up with evidence, and staying calm under pressure builds trust and lowers resistance. Flexibility is key. Being open to alternatives can sometimes lead to solutions better than the ones you first imagined. Timing and tone also matter. Choosing the right moment, when both sides are ready to talk, and maintaining a respectful, problem-solving attitude makes agreement easier to reach. Negotiation is a practical skill for resolving differences and securing outcomes that balance your goals with the needs of others. Reading body language. How someone stands, moves, or gestures can reveal as much as the words they speak. Reading body language is the ability to interpret nonverbal signals to gain insight into what a person may be thinking or feeling. It means noticing posture, expressions, gestures, and other cues in the context of the situation. At its foundation, this skill starts with paying attention to common indicators. Crossed arms can suggest defensiveness or discomfort, while leaning forward often signals interest. A genuine smile involves both the eyes and the mouth, while a forced one may not. But context is critical. The same gesture can mean very different things depending on circumstances. Someone crossing their arms in a cold room may just be keeping warm, not expressing disagreement. That's why it's important to read clusters of signals rather than relying on just one. In a meeting, a colleague avoiding eye contact and fidgeting might signal uncertainty about a proposal, suggesting you should address their concerns directly. In a social setting, someone glancing repeatedly toward the door might be ready to leave, even if they don't say it. It's also a two-way skill. Being aware of how your own body language comes across helps you project openness and confidence. Relaxed posture, steady but comfortable eye contact, and nodding as you listen can make others feel understood. Reading body language is a practical way to grasp unspoken information, adapt your communication, and respond effectively in any interaction. Memory palace. Remembering long lists without writing them down can be easier with a technique known as the memory palace. This method uses visualization to anchor information in familiar locations, turning abstract facts into vivid, spatial memories that are easier to recall in sequence. At its simplest, a memory palace works by choosing a place you know well, like your house, office, or school, as a mental map. You walk through it in your mind, assigning each piece of information to a specific spot along the way. To remember a grocery list, you might picture milk on the front porch, bread on the living room couch, and apples on the kitchen counter. The brain is especially strong at remembering visual and spatial details, which is why this method is so effective. Even if you forget part of the list, mentally walking through the space often brings the missing item back. The technique goes far beyond shopping lists. Students use it to recall historical dates, vocabulary, or the sequence of topics in a presentation. Professionals might rely on it to keep track of talking points in a meeting or speech. The key is to make each mental image unique and easy to visualize so it sticks. With practice, starting small and building complexity, you develop speed and accuracy. Over time, the memory palace becomes a powerful tool for holding large amounts of information without needing written notes. A memory palace is a practical technique for organizing and recalling information by mentally placing it in familiar locations that you can revisit whenever needed. Beating procrastination. Putting off tasks until the last possible moment, even when you have the time to do them, is at the heart of procrastination. Beating it is the skill of consistently taking action instead of delaying. It starts with understanding why the delay happens, breaking down barriers to getting started, and creating conditions that make follow-through easier. Often, procrastination sets in when a task feels too big, too vague, or simply unpleasant. The first step to overcoming it is to make the task more approachable. Breaking it into smaller, specific steps reduces the sense of overwhelm. Instead of thinking, I need to clean the whole kitchen, you might begin with just loading the dishwasher. Setting clear deadlines, even for small steps, helps keep momentum. Without them, tasks tend to drift. Tools like timers or short work intervals can make starting feel less overwhelming. The just begin approach, committing to 5 minutes of effort, often leads to continued progress once you're in motion. Cutting distractions also matters. Turning off notifications, working in a quiet spot, or keeping only the essentials in front of you helps you stay focused. Tackling harder tasks during high energy times like early in the day makes them easier to complete. Accountability boosts consistency too. Sharing your goals with someone else or tracking progress visibly makes it harder to ignore what's unfinished. Ultimately, beating procrastination is about building habits and structures that make starting easier, breaking work into manageable parts, and maintaining focus long enough to finish. Walking in their shoes. Understanding why someone reacts the way they do often begins with seeing the situation from their perspective. Walking in their shoes is the skill of imagining another person's point of view to better understand their feelings, thoughts, and choices. It's a way to improve communication, prevent misunderstandings, and respond in ways that fit their reality. At its core, this means considering the context behind their behavior. If a coworker seems short in conversation, they may be under pressure from a deadline rather than upset with you. If a friend cancels plans, imagining the obligations they're juggling can change how you respond. In practice, walking in their shoes means paying attention to details, what they've said before, their body language, and what you know about their situation. It can also mean asking clarifying questions instead of making assumptions. If a teammate disagrees with your idea, understanding their priorities or constraints might reveal they're tackling a different part of the problem. This skill is valuable both personally and professionally. In customer service, empathizing with a client's frustration often leads to better solutions. In family settings, focusing on the reasons behind each perspective helps resolve disagreements more smoothly. Over time, practicing this approach reduces unnecessary conflict, builds stronger connections, and deepens mutual understanding. Walking in their shoes is a practical way to look beyond your own perspective and respond with empathy and respect for what shapes someone else's actions. Mindfulness, paying full attention to what you're doing in the present moment, is the essence of mindfulness. This skill is about noticing your thoughts, feelings, and surroundings without distraction or judgment, allowing you to respond with clarity instead of reacting automatically. At its core, mindfulness means being fully present. Instead of replaying yesterday's events or worrying about tomorrow while eating lunch, you focus on the taste, texture, and smell of the food in front of you. This same awareness applies to walking, working, or having a conversation, making each experience more intentional. One way to build mindfulness is through focused breathing. Taking a few minutes to notice each breath can help anchor your attention and quiet mental clutter. For example, before starting a difficult task, pausing for a few deep breaths can help you begin with focus. Mindfulness can also be woven into everyday routines. Simple moments like walking outside, washing dishes, or listening closely in a conversation become chances to strengthen presence and awareness. Mindfulness is a practical way to ground yourself, reduce stress, and approach situations with clarity, making both everyday experiences and bigger challenges easier to navigate. While washing dishes, you might focus on the warmth of the water and the rhythm of your hands instead of letting your mind drift. In a meeting, concentrating fully on the speaker's words and tone can sharpen understanding and prevent you from missing important details. This skill is especially valuable for managing stress. By noticing thoughts and emotions as they surface, without immediately reacting, you create space to choose your response. If frustration rises during a conversation, recognizing it early gives you the chance to stay calm and handle the issue without escalating. Mindfulness is a practical way to boost focus, improve decision-making, and lower stress by training yourself to remain present and engaged in the moment. Accessing flow state. You've probably experienced those moments when time seems to vanish and you're fully immersed in what you're doing. Your concentration locks in, the task feels natural, and everything else fades into the background. That's what psychologists call a flow state, a mental zone where focus and performance are at their peak. Flow often appears when the challenge of the task matches your skill level. If it's too easy, boredom sets in. If it's too hard, stress takes over. But when the balance is right, your brain engages fully without tipping into tension. Examples are everywhere. A basketball player locked into the rhythm of a game, a chef juggling multiple dishes with precision, or someone completely absorbed in solving a puzzle. In these moments, the activity itself feels rewarding and distractions slip away. Reaching flow usually starts with a clear goal. Knowing exactly what you want to achieve helps your mind commit. Feedback also plays a role. Progress on a project, the sound of a perfect note, or a score ticking upward all signal your brain to stay engaged. The environment matters too. Cutting out interruptions, working in a focused space, and choosing times when your energy is highest make it easier to enter the zone. Some people use small rituals, like a playlist or a specific workspace, as cues to signal it's time to focus. Learning how to access flow doesn't just make you more productive, it makes the process itself more enjoyable, turning work and practice into something you want to return to instead of something you just push through. Digital detox. Stepping away from screens for a set period is the foundation of a digital detox. It's the practice of deliberately cutting back on phones, computers, TVs, and other devices to give your mind rest, improve focus, and open space for offline activities. At its heart, a digital detox isn't about rejecting technology entirely. It's about creating intentional breaks to reset habits. For instance, you might leave your phone in another room during meals so you can focus on conversation, or dedicate one evening a week to screen-free activities like reading a book, cooking, or spending time outdoors. The goal is to reduce constant stimulation. Notifications, endless scrolling, and rapid app switching fragment attention and wear down mental energy. A detox lets the brain recharge, making it easier to focus once you return to your devices. This doesn't have to happen all at once. Turning off non-essential alerts, setting app time limits, or blocking screen use during certain hours are practical starting points. Some people even plan entire days or weekends away from screens, using that time for hobbies, exercise, or in-person connection. A digital detox can also improve sleep. The glow of screens and the habit of late-night scrolling often disrupt rest, while stepping away earlier in the evening helps the mind wind down naturally. With regular practice, digital detoxing becomes a powerful tool for reclaiming focus, energy, and balance in a world filled with constant digital noise. Avoiding screens for an hour before bed helps reduce blue light exposure, which can disrupt the body's natural sleep rhythm. It also limits the mental stimulation that comes from scrolling through messages or news right before trying to rest. A digital detox is a practical way to sharpen focus, lower stress, and make more intentional use of technology by regularly setting aside time to unplug. Speed reading. The goal of speed reading is to finish books or articles in less time without losing comprehension. This skill is about reading faster while still retaining and understanding the material. It combines techniques that limit unnecessary eye movements, sharpen focus, and train the brain to process words in larger chunks instead of one at a time. At its foundation, speed reading starts with reducing subvocalization, the habit of silently pronouncing each word in your head. While natural, it slows you down. Training yourself to take in groups of words at once allows you to process information more quickly. For example, instead of reading, "The cat sat on the mat," word by word, your eyes capture the whole phrase in one glance. Another key method is managing eye movement. Many readers unconsciously pause or backtrack. Using a finger or pen as a guide helps your eyes move smoothly across the text, cutting down wasted time. Previewing content before diving in also improves both speed and comprehension. Scanning headings, summaries, and key points creates a mental framework that makes it easier to absorb details later. A student reviewing a textbook might skim bolded terms and summaries first, then read the full chapter more effectively. Importantly, not all material should be read at the same pace. Complex or technical subjects may require slowing down, while familiar topics can be read more quickly. Adjusting speed to match the content helps maintain balance between pace and understanding. Speed reading is a practical way to process information efficiently by training your eyes and brain to work together at a higher level without losing clarity. Breath control. Controlling the speed and depth of your breathing is the foundation of breath control. This skill uses intentional breathing techniques to influence physical performance, mental focus, and emotional state. It plays a role in everything from athletics to public speaking to managing stress. At its core, breath control begins with awareness. Most of the time, breathing happens automatically, but paying attention to how you inhale and exhale reveals patterns, like shallow breaths during stress or holding your breath while concentrating. Noticing these habits is the first step toward improving them. One effective method is diaphragmatic breathing, where you draw air deeply into your lungs by expanding your abdomen instead of lifting your shoulders. This creates fuller oxygen exchange and helps lower heart rate. Athletes use it before competition to stay calm and focused. Singers and wind instrument players rely on it to maintain steady airflow. Public speakers practice it to project their voice with control. Breath control is a practical skill that connects body and mind, helping you perform better, think more clearly, and handle pressure with greater ease. Breath control is also a powerful tool for managing stress. Slow, intentional breathing, such as inhaling for 4 counts, holding briefly, and exhaling for 6, can trigger the body's relaxation response. In daily life, this technique can be used before a tense meeting, while sitting in heavy traffic, or anytime emotions start to rise. In physical activity, breath control improves endurance and efficiency. Runners often sync their breath with their stride, while weightlifters exhale during exertion to stabilize and protect the spine. Even in simple tasks like carrying groceries or climbing stairs, mindful breathing can make the effort feel lighter. Breath control is a practical way to sharpen focus, reduce stress, and improve performance by becoming aware of how you breathe and adjusting it to fit the moment. Moral compass. When facing tough decisions, the instinct to choose what feels right often comes from your moral compass. This skill is the ability to lean on your values and sense of right and wrong to guide your actions, even when the correct choice isn't clear. It helps you stay consistent, act with integrity, and earn trust over time. At its core, a moral compass is shaped by your upbringing, culture, experiences, and reflection. It influences your response to everyday moments, from deciding whether to speak up when someone is treated unfairly to choosing how honest to be in a difficult conversation. For example, finding a lost wallet might push your moral compass to return it, even if no one else would know. In the workplace, it might mean refusing to cut corners on a project despite pressure to deliver quickly. In personal life, it guides how you treat friends, family, and strangers, especially when your choices could affect them. Maintaining a strong moral compass requires ongoing self-awareness. That means understanding your values, being willing to test them against new perspectives, and making choices that align with them, even when those choices are inconvenient or unpopular. While laws and rules set external boundaries, your moral compass provides the internal guide when no clear rules exist. Over time, consistently using it builds credibility and trust with others. A moral compass is a practical way to make decisions that reflect your principles, helping you act in line with the person you want to be in both everyday and high-pressure situations. Basic self-defense. Knowing how to protect yourself in a threatening situation is the foundation of basic self-defense. This skill uses simple, effective techniques designed to keep you safe and create the chance to escape. It's built on awareness, preparation, and straightforward physical actions that anyone can learn. At its base, self-defense starts with prevention, staying alert to your surroundings, avoiding risky areas, and trusting your instincts reduce the likelihood of danger. Crossing the street to avoid a group acting aggressively is self-defense without physical confrontation. When avoidance isn't possible, the goal shifts to creating space and reaching safety. That can mean using a firm voice to deter someone or draw attention, or applying quick physical techniques like breaking free from a wrist grab or using the heel of your palm to push an attacker back. These moves are simple, require little strength, and are designed to work under stress. Training makes responses more automatic. Community centers and martial arts schools often teach practical self-defense that focuses on real-world situations rather than complex routines. Even learning to keep a balanced stance, guard your head, or shield your body can make a difference. Self-defense also extends to what happens after an incident, finding a safe place, contacting authorities, and reaching out for support. Keeping emergency numbers handy and knowing local resources adds another layer of security. Basic self-defense is a practical way to build safety and confidence by blending awareness, preparation, and simple techniques anyone can apply when needed. Letting go. Letting go is the ability to release something that no longer serves you, whether it's a situation, a possession, a habit, or even a relationship. The purpose is to free up mental and emotional energy that would otherwise remain stuck in something you can't change or improve. At its simplest, letting go begins with recognizing when holding on is doing more harm than good. For instance, keeping a broken appliance in hopes of fixing it one day just creates clutter and takes up space. The same is true for replaying a past mistake over and over. It doesn't change what happened, but it does prevent you from focusing on what's happening now. The process often starts with an honest look at why you're still holding on. Sometimes it's out of habit, like continuing a hobby you no longer enjoy just because it's always been part of your routine. Other times, it's emotional, such as keeping contact with someone who consistently chips away at your confidence. Once you identify the reason, it's easier to decide whether it still belongs in your life. Letting go doesn't mean forgetting or pretending something never mattered. Often it means honoring the value it once had and then choosing to move forward without it. After leaving a job, for example, it's natural to miss certain aspects, but dwelling on them too long can make it harder to embrace new opportunities. Practical steps help, setting boundaries, replacing unhelpful habits with healthier ones, or physically removing items that no longer serve a purpose. Each small action reinforces your choice, making the transition smoother. Letting go is a practical skill that lightens stress, helps you adapt to change, and keeps your focus on what can be influenced rather than what's outside your control. Laughing at yourself. Finding humor in your own mistakes, quirks, or awkward moments keeps things light instead of tense. It's about not taking yourself too seriously. Everyone makes mistakes. Spilling coffee on your shirt before a meeting, stumbling over a word in front of others, or sending a message to the wrong person. Responding with a lighthearted comment instead of embarrassment puts you in control of the moment. People tend to respond more positively to someone who can laugh at a slip-up than to someone who gets defensive. This skill also builds resilience. Instead of turning small setbacks into big stressors, you move past them quickly. In a workplace setting, for example, if you trip during a presentation and laugh it off, you show confidence and adaptability rather than clumsiness. It also strengthens relationships. Friends, family, and coworkers often feel more at ease around someone who isn't fixated on looking perfect. It opens the door to more genuine interactions because it shows you can be human without shame. Developing this skill starts by shifting your inner reaction. Instead of focusing on how embarrassing something feels, see it as a shared human moment. Over time, it gets easier to let go of perfection and accept that minor mistakes are simply part of life. By keeping a sense of humor about your own slip-ups, you make challenges easier to handle and create a more relaxed atmosphere for yourself and those around you. Comfortable being alone. Being comfortable with solitude means being at ease with your own company without feeling bored, restless, or anxious. It's the ability to enjoy time by yourself instead of constantly seeking distraction or validation from others. At a basic level, it's about knowing how to spend time alone in ways that feel fulfilling. Reading a book, cooking a meal, going for a walk, or working on a hobby. People who are comfortable being alone don't view solitude as an empty space to fill, but as an opportunity to do something meaningful. It also means being okay with silence and stillness. In a world buzzing with notifications, conversations, and constant entertainment, being alone can feel unusual. But building comfort with solitude gives you the chance to think clearly, reflect on priorities, and make decisions without outside influence. Practical examples include enjoying a meal alone without feeling self-conscious, traveling solo without the need for constant company, or spending an evening at home without automatically reaching for your phone. These experiences build independence and lessen reliance on others for your sense of well-being. Being comfortable alone also strengthens social connections. Because when you're content in your own company, your interactions with others become healthier, more genuine, and less dependent on needing them to fill a void. When you don't rely on company to feel fulfilled, your relationships become a choice rather than a requirement. This often creates stronger, healthier connections because they're built on genuine enjoyment instead of dependence. The ability to enjoy your own company isn't about avoiding people. It's about having the confidence and skills to spend time with yourself productively and contentedly. It becomes a foundation for personal growth, emotional balance, and a more stable life. Basic self-defense. Knowing how to protect yourself in a threatening situation is the core of basic self-defense. This skill is about applying simple, effective techniques to stay safe and create an opportunity to escape when needed. It combines awareness, preparation, and straightforward physical actions that anyone can learn. At its base, self-defense begins with prevention. Staying alert to your surroundings, avoiding isolated areas at night, and trusting your instincts all reduce the chance of danger. For example, crossing the street to avoid a group acting aggressively is self-defense in practice without physical contact. If avoidance isn't possible, the goal shifts to creating space and reaching safety. That can mean using a firm voice to deter an aggressor or draw attention, or employing quick, efficient moves like breaking free from a wrist grab or striking with the heel of your palm. These techniques are designed to work under stress and require little strength. Training builds confidence and makes responses automatic. Community centers and martial arts schools often offer practical classes that focus on real-world situations instead of complex routines. Even learning basics, like how to hold a stable stance or guard your head, can make a difference. Self-defense also includes knowing what to do after an incident, finding a safe location, contacting authorities, and seeking help from others nearby. Keeping emergency numbers accessible and being familiar with local resources adds another layer of preparedness. Basic self-defense is a practical way to improve personal safety through awareness, confidence, and simple skills that help you avoid or escape danger. Positive reframing. Facing a setback and choosing to focus on what can be gained from it is the essence of positive reframing. This skill is about intentionally shifting your perspective to highlight growth, learning, or opportunity instead of dwelling only on the difficulty. It doesn't mean ignoring the problem or pretending everything is fine. It's about finding a constructive angle. The process begins with acknowledging the challenge for what it is, then asking what possibilities it might open. For example, being passed over for a promotion can feel discouraging. A reframed perspective could be using the time to develop new skills, broaden your experience, or pursue opportunities more aligned with long-term goals. This approach depends on separating facts from interpretation. Two people may face the same disappointment, but one views it only as failure, while the other sees valuable feedback. By focusing on what can be learned or improved, the setback feels more manageable and future decisions become clearer. Practical ways to build this habit include asking yourself what the situation makes possible, looking for lessons that could prevent similar issues, and identifying hidden benefits. For example, a canceled trip could mean extra rest, money saved, or time to revisit a project you had postponed. Positive reframing isn't about blind optimism. It works best when paired with real problem solving and action. It's a practical way to turn obstacles into stepping stones, perhaps making challenges easier to navigate while keeping your outlook balanced and constructive. Over time, positive reframing can lower stress, sharpen problem-solving skills, and make it easier to adapt when life takes an unexpected turn. Training your mind to spot the constructive side of setbacks helps keep motivation and focus steady, even when circumstances aren't ideal. Trusting your gut. Making choices without analyzing every detail is something most people do, often guided by a quick internal signal that points the way before they've fully thought it through. These instinctive responses usually appear when time, information, or clarity are limited. What feels like intuition is really the brain pulling from past experiences and learned patterns. Even when you can't explain it, your mind has picked up on subtle cues, tone of voice, body language, or familiar situations, and translates them into a strong sense of what to do next. A common example is choosing not to take a shortcut because it just doesn't feel right, even without a visible reason. These signals also shape smaller everyday choices, selecting one product over another without reading every detail, noticing tension in a coworker before they speak, or leaning toward a job offer without being able to fully explain why. All reflect the influence of intuition. Of course, gut instincts aren't perfect. They can be clouded by bias or gaps in knowledge, which is why they're most effective when paired with logic. In areas where you have experience, intuition tends to be more accurate. In new or unfamiliar territory, it's usually better to double-check before acting. By noticing how often your instincts lead to good outcomes, you can learn when to trust them and when they need a second look. In the end, intuition works as the brain's shortcut for decision-making, blending experience and perception into a fast, confident guide for everyday life. Staying curious. Curiosity begins with noticing something you don't fully understand and wanting to know more. Staying curious is the habit of asking questions, exploring new ideas, and seeking explanations, even when it would be easier to settle with what you already know. It's a skill that keeps your thinking active and adaptable in both simple situations and complex ones. At its simplest, curiosity means not stopping at the first answer. If a recipe turns out better than expected, you might wonder which step made the difference. When you get a new phone, you might explore its features instead of sticking to the defaults. These small choices to investigate deepen understanding over time. Curiosity also broadens perspective. Asking a coworker how they approach a task, reading about a topic you've never studied, or visiting a place you've never been gives you insights and experiences you wouldn't otherwise have. This not only builds knowledge, but also strengthens problem solving by giving you a wider pool of examples and ideas to draw from. Staying curious often means being comfortable with not knowing right away. Instead of feeling pressure to have an instant answer, you treat uncertainty as a signal to learn more. This mindset helps in troubleshooting, understanding different viewpoints, or picking up new skills. You can practice it by regularly seeking out something unfamiliar, asking clear questions, and noticing details others might miss. Curiosity is ultimately about keeping your mind engaged in discovery, helping you adapt and grow in a changing world. Taking initiative. The essence of taking initiative is seeing a problem and choosing to act before being asked. It's the ability to step forward proactively rather than waiting for instructions or for someone else to take the lead. This skill moves tasks along faster, brings solutions to light sooner, and creates opportunities that might otherwise pass by. At its core, initiative begins with awareness. You notice when something could be improved or when a task needs attention. Instead of waiting for permission, you act on it, whether it's fixing a small issue before it grows larger or volunteering to start a project that benefits the team. Taking initiative is about leaning in, spotting opportunities, and choosing to contribute without hesitation. Instead of assuming it's someone else's job, you choose to step in. If a meeting room is cluttered before an important presentation, you tidy it without being asked. If a teammate is struggling with a deadline, you offer help before they reach out. Initiative also fuels personal growth. Signing up for a class, researching a topic on your own, or finally starting that project you've been thinking about are all examples of moving forward without waiting for permission. Over time, these small steps build momentum, confidence, and trust. In the workplace, people who take initiative often earn more responsibility because they show they can spot needs and follow through. In social settings, it smooths interactions, like introducing people who haven't met yet or organizing plans when no one else has stepped up. Taking initiative doesn't mean rushing in thoughtlessly. It works best when balanced with awareness of timing, resources, and the people involved. Asking for input when necessary and aligning your actions with the bigger picture makes your efforts both effective and well received. At its core, initiative is about being proactive, solving problems, creating opportunities, and choosing to act before you're required to. Asking good questions. Sometimes a question can be more valuable than an answer. In daily life, it shapes how you learn, solve problems, and connect with others. Asking good questions means framing them clearly, with the aim of uncovering useful or surprising insights. The best questions focus attention on what isn't yet known. Instead of repeating what you already understand, they push you to explore gaps, challenge assumptions, and view things from a new angle. Many innovators, scientists, and leaders trace their biggest breakthroughs back to a single well-framed question. In technology, new products often begin with simple prompts like, "Why hasn't anyone tried this?" Or, "What if we changed that?" In everyday life, good questions are just as powerful. Asking a mechanic, "What's the most urgent repair?" helps you prioritize. Asking a doctor, "What are the alternatives?" gives you more control over your treatment. Even socially asking, "What was the most interesting part of your day?" can spark deeper conversations than small talk ever could. Curiosity is the fuel behind this skill. Children naturally ask countless questions, but as people grow older, they often hesitate out of fear of looking uninformed. Overcoming that hesitation is a skill in itself. Some of the best communicators rely on what are sometimes called naive questions, simple, straightforward prompts that cut through complexity and reveal important truths. A strong question is specific enough to invite a clear answer, but open enough to leave room for fresh insights. It's asked with genuine curiosity, not just to confirm what you already believe. Mastering this skill makes learning faster, problem-solving sharper, and conversations richer. Emotional intelligence. Recognizing when frustration is rising in a conversation and choosing to stay calm is one example of emotional intelligence. This skill is the ability to notice, understand, and manage your own emotions, while also recognizing and responding appropriately to the emotions of others. It influences how you communicate, how you solve problems, and how you sustain relationships. At its core, emotional intelligence begins with self-awareness. Emotional intelligence begins with paying attention to your own feelings and noticing the situations that trigger them. For example, if you know long meetings make you impatient, you can prepare strategies to stay engaged instead of zoning out. The next step is self-regulation, pausing before reacting and choosing a response that fits the moment. It also includes social awareness, which is recognizing emotional cues in others. A coworker's short replies might hint at stress, while a friend's upbeat tone could show excitement. Picking up on these signals helps you respond in ways that strengthen the interaction. The final piece is relationship management, using this awareness to build trust, resolve conflicts, and communicate more clearly. In everyday life, this can be as simple as listening without interrupting when someone is upset, giving constructive feedback without sounding harsh, or calming yourself before replying to criticism. Over time, these small choices reduce misunderstandings and make conversations more productive. Developing emotional intelligence often means practicing empathy, reflecting on past interactions, and staying open to feedback about how you communicate. It's a practical skill that improves how you handle your own emotions and how you respond to others, creating stronger connections in both personal and professional life. Being anti-fragile. Making a mistake at work, learning from it, and doing better the next time is an example of being anti-fragile. This skill is about benefiting from stress, challenges, and setbacks instead of being weakened by them. It's not just about surviving difficulties, it's about using them to get stronger. At its core, anti-fragility means adapting in ways that leave you better off than before. If a presentation falls flat, you review what went wrong, adjust, and deliver more effectively the next time. The stress from the first experience becomes fuel for growth. This is different from resilience, which focuses on bouncing back to the same level. Anti-fragility is about moving higher after each challenge. Everyday examples include building strength through exercise, where controlled stress makes muscles stronger, or learning new skills after a tough project instead of avoiding similar challenges in the future. Even small changes, like improving your budgeting after an unexpected expense, show how setbacks can create better systems. Being anti-fragile often involves preparation and experimentation. You try new approaches, accept that some will fail, and use the lessons to refine your strategy. It also means not avoiding discomfort entirely, because the right kind of stress reveals weak spots you can strengthen. In the workplace, anti-fragile people adapt quickly to change by treating problems as opportunities. In personal life, it might mean building stronger relationships by working through disagreements rather than avoiding them. Anti-fragility is the skill of turning pressure, mistakes, and uncertainty into tools for growth, making you stronger each time you face challenges. Comfort zone expansion. Doing something unfamiliar, even in a small way, is the first step to expanding your comfort zone. This skill is about slowly building tolerance for new or challenging experiences so you can handle more situations with confidence. It doesn't require dramatic leaps. Consistent, manageable steps build the same long-term growth. At its core, comfort zone expansion happens when you push just slightly beyond what feels safe and familiar. Over time, those small steps add up, building confidence, adaptability, and a greater capacity to handle change. Whether it's speaking up in a meeting, trying a new hobby, or traveling somewhere different, each choice outside your normal routine expands what feels possible. The result is a wider range of experiences you can face with calm and confidence, both personally and professionally. This could mean speaking up in a meeting when you'd normally stay quiet, trying a new type of exercise, or learning to use technology you're unfamiliar with. Each small success expands your sense of what's possible. The process often starts with identifying the areas where you feel limited. If public speaking makes you uneasy, you might begin by offering one comment in a small group before working up to addressing a larger audience. If meeting new people feels intimidating, you could start with short conversations in low-pressure settings. These controlled challenges let you adapt without becoming overwhelmed. Expanding your comfort zone also makes you more adaptable. Situations that once caused stress become easier to manage, freeing up mental energy for problem solving and learning. At work, this might mean adjusting smoothly to new tools or procedures. In personal life, it could mean feeling comfortable in unfamiliar environments, from traveling to joining new activities. This skill improves with repetition. The more you step slightly beyond what feels comfortable and succeed, the more normal it becomes, making future challenges feel less intimidating. Comfort zone expansion is a practical way to build adaptability, resilience, and confidence by steadily taking on experiences that stretch your limits in manageable steps. Pragmatic listening. People don't always say exactly what they mean. Words can be shaped by habit, politeness, or a desire to avoid conflict. Pragmatic listening is the skill of hearing not just the words themselves, but the intention, feelings, and context behind them. It's about interpretation, not just hearing. At its simplest, it means noticing how something is said, not only what's said. A friend might respond, "I'm fine," but with a flat tone or a lack of eye contact, signals that suggest something is wrong. This isn't about guessing or mind reading. It's about paying attention to natural cues like tone, pacing, pauses, and volume. Context matters too. If a coworker agrees to take on more work but hesitates before answering, that pause could mean they feel pressured. Acknowledging it, "I appreciate you helping, but let me know if it's too much," creates room for honesty. Pragmatic listening is valuable in everyday situations. It helps when giving feedback, understanding disagreements, or recognizing when someone needs support without directly asking. It also prevents misunderstandings by clarifying what someone truly means. Developing this skill takes practice. It involves slowing down, focusing fully on the speaker, and noticing subtle changes in tone or expression. When needed, confirming your interpretation ensures accuracy and builds trust. Being able to grasp meaning beyond the literal words leads to stronger connections and clearer communication. Brainstorming. Generating a wide range of ideas before choosing one solution is the foundation of brainstorming. This skill is about creating as many possibilities as you can without judging them too early, so you explore multiple angles before narrowing down. It's useful for problem solving, project planning, and sparking creativity in both personal and professional contexts. At its core, brainstorming works best when idea generation and evaluation are kept separate. The first phase is about quantity, capturing every idea, even those that seem unrealistic at first. For example, if you're deciding how to celebrate a friend's birthday, you might list everything from hosting a dinner to planning a weekend trip, without worrying yet about cost or feasibility. In a workplace setting, brainstorming helps teams approach challenges with fresh perspectives. When launching a new product, a group might throw out every possible feature or marketing approach before deciding which ones are practical. By encouraging wide, unfiltered idea generation, brainstorming opens the door to solutions that might not emerge otherwise. It's a practical way to fuel creativity, build collaboration, and uncover options you might never have considered if you judged ideas too soon. By encouraging open input, people can build on one another's suggestions, often leading to ideas that wouldn't surface individually. The environment plays a key role. A space where participants feel safe to share without fear of criticism tends to generate more creative options. Tools like whiteboards, sticky notes, or shared digital documents help capture ideas quickly so they don't get lost. Once ideas are on the table, the next step is review, sorting through them to see which are practical and align with your goals. This is where you weigh resources, constraints, and likely outcomes before selecting the best options. Brainstorming is a practical skill for unlocking creativity, solving problems efficiently, and bringing multiple perspectives into the decision-making process. Sustaining attention span. Staying with a task without letting your mind drift is the essence of sustaining attention span. This skill is the ability to focus on one activity for a set period, even when distractions are present or the work feels repetitive. It's essential for learning, problem solving, and getting daily responsibilities done effectively. At its simplest, sustaining attention means keeping your mental energy directed toward the same goal until it's finished, or until you deliberately switch. Reading an article from start to finish without checking your phone or staying engaged in a meeting until the last point is covered are examples of strengthening this skill. Attention span is shaped by environment, interest, and habits. External distractions like noise or notifications can pull focus, while internal factors like fatigue or boredom make it harder to stay engaged. Managing these influences is part of building stronger concentration. Turning off unnecessary alerts, choosing a quiet space, and breaking large tasks into smaller segments all help. Setting clear, immediate goals, like writing 2 paragraphs or clearing a handful of emails, makes it easier to measure progress and stay on track. Regular breaks also matter. Pausing after 25 to 30 minutes of focused work can refresh your mind without losing momentum. In both personal and professional life, a strong attention span boosts productivity and reduces mistakes caused by distraction. It allows for deeper processing, better decisions, and higher quality results. Sustaining attention span is a practical skill for maintaining focus long enough to achieve meaningful outcomes in any activity that requires your full concentration. Habit design. Replacing late-night scrolling with reading a few pages of a book is a simple example of habit design. This skill is about intentionally shaping routines so they work for your goals instead of against them. It requires understanding what triggers a behavior, what reinforces it, and how to make it easier to repeat consistently. At its core, habit design starts with identifying a clear, specific behavior you want to build or change. If your goal is to exercise, you might decide to do 10 minutes of stretching right after waking up. By linking the new habit to a consistent cue and making it small enough to start easily, you increase the chance that it sticks. Over time, these small, well-designed habits compound into meaningful long-term change. Linking a new habit to an existing routine, like brushing your teeth or making coffee, creates a natural cue to take action. Making a habit simple to start increases the likelihood it will stick. Breaking a big goal into smaller, manageable steps prevents overwhelm. For example, if your goal is to drink more water, keeping a bottle nearby throughout the day removes friction. On the flip side, making unwanted habits harder to perform, like storing snacks out of sight, helps reduce how often they happen. Reinforcement plays an important role as well. Tracking progress visually, such as marking days on a calendar or rewarding yourself after completing a habit, strengthens motivation over time. With repetition, habits become automatic, requiring less conscious effort. Habit design also means adjusting when something doesn't work. If a morning workout feels rushed, moving it to the evening might make it more sustainable. Small tweaks like these can keep a habit alive instead of abandoning it altogether. Habit design is a practical way to shape routines that match your priorities by refining your environment, reducing barriers, and reinforcing the behaviors you want to keep. Building confidence. Speaking up in a meeting when you have an idea is a simple example of building confidence. This skill is about developing trust in your own abilities and judgment so you can take action without being held back by doubt. Confidence grows over time through preparation, practice, and experience. At its core, building confidence begins with competence. The more familiar you are with a task, the less intimidating it becomes. Preparing thoroughly for a presentation, practicing your delivery, knowing your material, and anticipating questions reduces the chance of being caught off guard and makes speaking in front of others far less daunting. Small, consistent steps are key to strengthening confidence. Taking on minor challenges like introducing yourself to someone new or accepting a small responsibility at work creates a string of positive experiences to build on. Over time, these wins shift your perspective on what you're capable of handling. Part of building confidence is also learning from setbacks without letting them define you. If a project doesn't go as planned, reviewing what went wrong and applying those lessons to the next attempt turns failure into progress. Your environment matters too. Surrounding yourself with people who offer constructive feedback and support makes challenges easier to take on. Avoiding constant comparison and focusing on your own growth keeps attention on meaningful progress. Building confidence is ultimately about gaining skills, stacking small wins, and treating setbacks as lessons, so you approach challenges with greater assurance in your abilities. Bouncing back. Missing an opportunity or making a mistake can feel discouraging, but bouncing back is the skill of recovering quickly and moving forward. It's about regaining focus, adjusting your approach, and continuing on without letting setbacks permanently slow you down. At its core, bouncing back begins with acceptance. Facing what happened instead of ignoring it makes it easier to process and respond. This might mean acknowledging a poor result on a project, a failed exam, or a missed deadline. From there, you identify factors within your control. If a presentation didn't go well, maybe more preparation or practicing in front of others could help. If an application was rejected, improving your qualifications or targeting a better fit can turn disappointment into a plan. Maintaining perspective is just as important. Viewing setbacks as temporary rather than permanent prevents discouragement from taking over. Small actions like making a new schedule, asking for feedback, or starting on a fresh task rebuild momentum. Bouncing back is a practical way to turn obstacles into stepping stones, like helping you keep moving toward your goals with resilience and focus. Bouncing back isn't about pretending a setback didn't matter. It's about making sure it doesn't become the final outcome. People who practice this skill adapt more quickly to change because they focus on solutions rather than the obstacle itself. Bouncing back is a practical way to recover from challenges by acknowledging what happened, identifying areas for improvement, and taking action to move forward. Developing discipline. Following through on a task, even when you don't feel like it, is the heart of discipline. This skill is the ability to stay committed to a goal or standard over time, regardless of shifting moods, distractions, or temporary discomfort. It's what keeps progress steady even when motivation fades. At its core, discipline means making decisions based on long-term benefits instead of short-term convenience. Finishing a report before turning on the TV ensures quality work delivered on time. Sticking to an exercise routine, even on busy days, maintains health and consistency. In every case, the choice favors what's important over what's easiest. Discipline often depends on structure. Schedules, reminders, and reduced distractions make it easier to follow through. A student preparing for exams might set aside the same study hours every day, while someone saving money could automate transfers into a savings account, so the habit runs on autopilot. It also requires self-control in the moment. When faced with competing options, discipline means choosing the one that aligns with your goals, even if it's less comfortable. Over time, these repeated choices strengthen the habit of acting with purpose instead of impulse. Discipline isn't about being rigid in every area. It's about consistency where it matters most. Applied to health, learning, work, relationships, or personal projects, discipline creates steady progress and dependable results. It's a practical skill for staying committed to what's important by making intentional choices and maintaining effort over time. Being calm under pressure. Handling urgent tasks without letting stress take over is the essence of staying calm under pressure. This skill is about keeping focus, thinking clearly, and acting effectively in high-stakes or time-sensitive situations. It prevents the mistakes that come when emotions override clear judgment. At its simplest, calm under pressure begins with controlling your initial reaction. When something unexpected happens, like a technical issue during a presentation, pausing to breathe and assess keeps you from making rash decisions. That short pause creates space to gather information and take a logical next step. Preparation also plays a critical role. Familiarity with tasks and potential challenges lowers the chance of being overwhelmed. A nurse who has rehearsed emergency protocols is more likely to respond smoothly during a real emergency. In daily life, practicing how you'd handle common problems like car trouble or sudden schedule changes helps keep stress at a manageable level. Being calm under pressure is a practical way to improve decision-making, maintain focus, and act with confidence when it matters most. It turns stressful moments into opportunities to stay steady, adapt, and move forward with clarity. Another part of staying calm under pressure is managing your focus. Prioritizing the most important actions and tackling them one at a time prevents your attention from scattering. In a busy kitchen during dinner service, for example, a chef may focus first on dishes that need to be served immediately before moving on to less urgent tasks. Building stress tolerance through smaller challenges also prepares you for bigger ones. Speaking to a small group before addressing a large audience or handling minor problems before major ones trains you to stay steady without panic. Calm under pressure is a practical way to think clearly, make sound decisions, and carry out the right actions effectively when the situation matters most. Conflict resolution. Disagreements are a natural part of daily life, and conflict resolution is the skill of working through them in a way that leads to a workable solution. It's about understanding the issue, communicating clearly, and finding common ground without damaging the relationship. At its core, conflict resolution starts with identifying the true problem. Two coworkers might argue over deadlines, but the real issue could be unclear responsibilities. Taking the time to separate surface complaints from underlying causes makes it easier to address what matters most. Listening is critical. Allowing the other person to share their perspective without interruption shows respect and can uncover details you didn't know. In a household dispute over chores, for instance, learning that someone's schedule has changed might explain why tasks have been missed. Once both sides are heard, the focus shifts to solutions. This might involve compromise, where each side gives up something, or collaboration, where a new approach meets both sets of needs. In the workplace, that could mean adjusting project timelines. In a family, it might mean reassigning responsibilities to match availability. Staying calm and respectful keeps the conversation productive. Avoiding blame and focusing on actions rather than personal traits lowers defensiveness and keeps attention on problem solving. Follow-through is the final step. Agreeing on clear next actions and checking in to make sure they're working helps prevent the same conflict from resurfacing. Conflict resolution is a practical skill for turning disagreements into constructive outcomes by understanding the root issue, listening actively, and working towards solutions that meet the needs of everyone involved. Researching. Looking up information that already exists is the foundation of secondary research. This skill is about gathering and analyzing data, studies, or reports created by others to answer a question, support a decision, or better understand a topic. It saves time and resources by relying on credible sources that have already done the heavy lifting of primary research. At its simplest, secondary research begins with defining what you need to know. If you're opening a small cafe, you might research market reports on coffee consumption, studies on customer preferences, and local business statistics. Instead of running your own surveys, you use published material to guide decisions. Reliable sources are key. Books, academic journals, government databases, industry reports, and reputable news outlets all provide valuable information. Checking when the material was published and who produced it helps ensure accuracy and relevance. For instance, a student writing about climate change would prioritize recent peer-reviewed studies from recognized institutions over outdated or unverified articles. Organizing your findings makes them more useful. Summarizing key points, noting sources, and highlighting insights that directly apply to your question ensures the research supports your decisions effectively. Researching is a practical skill that builds knowledge, supports problem solving, and grounds choices in evidence rather than assumptions. Keeping track of where each piece of information comes from and grouping data by theme makes it easier to spot trends or gaps. It also helps when you need to reference your sources later. Secondary research proves useful in many areas, whether you're preparing for a presentation, comparing products before making a purchase, or learning about regulations for a new business. It can also serve as the groundwork before deciding if primary research like surveys or interviews is necessary. Doing secondary research is a practical way to gather insights and make informed decisions by relying on credible existing information rather than starting from scratch. Spotting fake news. Seeing a headline with a bold claim should immediately prompt you to check its credibility. Spotting fake news is the skill of identifying false or misleading information before you accept or share it. It involves verifying sources, checking evidence, and recognizing signs of unreliable reporting. At its core, spotting fake news begins with evaluating the source. Credible stories usually come from established outlets with clear editorial standards and named authors. Unknown sites, vague author details, or domains that mimic legitimate ones are red flags. For instance, a health article from an official medical organization carries far more weight than one posted on a blog with no cited expertise. Checking for supporting evidence is another key step. Reliable reporting connects claims to verifiable data, studies, or official statements. If a claim can't be traced back to a credible source, it should be questioned. For example, a social media post about a new law should ideally link directly to a government announcement. Language can also reveal warning signs. Sensational headlines, packed with extreme wording or emotional triggers, often aim for clicks, not accuracy. Authentic reporting tends to deliver information in a measured tone, even when covering major events. Cross-referencing with other reputable outlets adds another safeguard. If a big story only appears on one questionable site, it's likely not accurate. Tools like fact-checking websites can also help confirm or debunk questionable claims quickly. Spotting fake news is a practical skill for avoiding misinformation that can shape decisions on health, finances, or even voting. It helps protect you and those around you by ensuring information is accurate, credible, and backed by trustworthy sources. Sleep optimization. Waking up rested instead of groggy often comes down to sleep optimization. This skill is about creating the right conditions and habits to improve the quality and consistency of your sleep so your body and mind can recover effectively. At its core, sleep optimization starts with maintaining a regular schedule. Going to bed and waking up at the same time each day regulates your internal clock, making it easier to fall asleep and wake naturally. For example, keeping the same routine on weekends prevents the Monday morning struggle caused by shifting patterns. The sleep environment also plays a major role. A cool, quiet, and dark room supports deeper rest. This could mean using blackout curtains, lowering noise with earplugs or a white noise machine, and adjusting the temperature for comfort. Limiting stimulants like caffeine later in the day and avoiding heavy meals near bedtime also makes a difference. Reducing screen exposure before bed is equally important. Blue light interferes with melatonin production. Establishing a relaxing routine like reading a physical book, stretching, or listening to calm music helps signal to your body that it's time to wind down. For people who wake during the night, techniques such as slow breathing or focusing on gentle, non-stressful thoughts can make it easier to fall back asleep. Sleep optimization is a practical way to improve overall health, mood, and productivity by making intentional choices that support restorative rest each night. Being street smart. Noticing your surroundings and making quick, sensible decisions in public is the foundation of being street smart. This skill is about staying aware, reading situations, and taking actions that keep you safe while helping you move through daily life more effectively. At its core, being street smart begins with situational awareness. Being street smart means paying close attention to your surroundings and noticing details that signal either safety or risk. When walking through an unfamiliar area, for example, you might watch the people nearby, note available exits, and choose well-lit paths instead of getting lost in your phone. It's also about making practical choices to avoid unnecessary trouble, like keeping valuables out of sight, choosing busier transportation routes, or calmly moving away from a situation that feels tense. In daily life, it can be as simple as locking your bike properly or double checking directions before you head out. Street smarts also extend to social interactions, recognizing when a request or offer seems suspicious, politely declining, and walking away can prevent problems. In crowded places, respecting personal space and positioning yourself where you can see what's going on adds another layer of protection. Experience and preparation strengthen this skill, knowing which neighborhoods are safer at certain times, learning basic self-defense moves, or keeping emergency contacts saved in your phone all contribute to making smarter choices. Being street smart is ultimately about navigating public spaces with confidence, combining awareness, judgment, and quick thinking to stay safe and handle challenges effectively. Life-saving basics. Knowing how to protect yourself in a dangerous situation is the foundation of basic self-defense. This skill is about using simple, effective techniques to stay safe and create the chance to escape if needed. It combines awareness, preparation, and physical actions that anyone can learn and apply. At its core, basic self-defense begins with prevention. Staying alert to your surroundings, avoiding isolated areas at night, and trusting your instincts can lower the risk of confrontation. For example, crossing the street to avoid a group acting aggressively is an effective form of self-defense that doesn't involve physical contact. If avoidance isn't possible, the goal is to create space and get to safety. This can mean using your voice firmly to deter an aggressor or attract attention, or applying simple physical techniques like breaking free from a wrist grab or striking with the heel of your palm to push someone away. These moves are designed to be quick, effective, and require little strength. Training helps make these responses automatic under stress. Many community centers and martial arts schools teach practical self-defense focused on real-world scenarios rather than complex routines. Even learning how to keep a balanced stance or shield your head can make a real difference. Basic self-defense also includes knowing what to do afterward, finding a safe location, contacting authorities, or getting help from people nearby. Keeping emergency numbers handy and knowing local resources adds another layer of preparedness. Basic self-defense is a practical way to build confidence and improve personal safety by combining awareness, preparation, and simple techniques that help you avoid or escape dangerous situations. Basic cooking,